All right, good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning. You know what time it is. It's 9 a.m. So that means it is time for story time. Story time, story time, story time. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Grab your coffee, grab your friends, and come and join us for some story time this morning. How are you guys doing out there? If you're watching, if you're tuning in live on the Facebook, if you're tuning in live on the Instagram, if you're tuning in live on the Twitter. So the Twitter, we've been doing these audio broadcasts that are live. So it's kind of like, I guess you could say it's like live radio. And this is going to be, what episode are we on? Episode 22. Can you believe it? 22 days, 22 mornings. We have come together and we've had a little story time celebration. 22 days, 22 mornings. Excited to be back with you guys on this day. This is Cinco de Mayo. Hence, if you're on the video, hence my little decorative costume that I'm wearing today for a moment because I can't see anything with this. But today is Cinco de Mayo. The Cinco de Mayo celebrations are going to be a little bit different this year because we are still experiencing our quarantine and social distancing. So Cinco de Mayo is a little different. But Cinco de Mayo, the celebration we have, which is an observation of the Mexican Army's victory over the French Empire at the Battle of Puebla, which happened May 5th, 1862. So that was a while ago. So there's lots of parades, typically food, music, drinks, drink specials at our salon at the Salon 1.0 on Cinco de Mayo. I get to play bartender and I get to go around to the salons and serve Patron margaritas, which I'm missing doing this year because we're having a little bit of a different approach, right? A lot of us, we're still at home. Our businesses are still closed. We're getting ready to reopen, which is going to be pretty exciting. Reopening is already underway, for our businesses. What that looks like for us is making sure that we have the proper equipment and sanitation and making sure that we're ready and versed as we all get ready to go and start getting back to business. And there's, definitely there's lots of, different stipulations and limitations as we get going. And I'm sure you guys are experiencing that no matter where you are. You're experiencing, there's some limitations to what you can do, some limitations to what you're able to do based on your state or based on what the guidelines of your business, what is being mandated there. But I'm excited to get back open. I'm excited to get back to work. I'm excited to get back to our reality. And, this reality is going to be a little different. It's not going to be the same reality that we had, but I'm excited to get back. So happy Cinco de Mayo, wherever you are. If you're not able to partake in any festivities, this is my Patron margarita for you guys. So cheers, happy Cinco de Mayo. Welcome to Storytime. We're here at 9 a.m. every morning, Monday through Friday, where I get to share with you some of the stories, some of the experiences, some of the battle stories, as a beauty co-CEO, as a beauty professional, as a salon owner. And so if you're in the spirit of Cinco de Mayo, you have your Cinco de Mayo wardrobe on. I told you guys to come dressed up. Now I can't see all of you, but if you want to tweet or want to post or want to comment with a picture of you in your Cinco de Mayo garb, I may or may not have a special gift for you. So take a picture, take a quick selfie of you in your Cinco de Mayo garb if you came dressed up. Some of you may have, some of you may have not. But if you came dressed up, then I'm gonna expect to see a little selfie of you in your Cinco de Mayo garb. So excited to be here. I'm gonna take mine right now while we're live streaming on our Instagram, streaming on Facebook. So take a little selfie of you in your Insta selfie in your Cinco de Mayo garb, and post that picture, hashtag StoryTime, and I may have a little gift for you. So this is episode 22. I've been coming to you guys every morning at 9 a.m. Hopefully you brought a friend today. If you did, awesome on you. If you didn't, I don't know why. But we're going to be going into another chapter of the book. And I have to take my Cinco de Mayo costume off now because I really can't see anything. I've had these for a while. These are these little fun glasses. They've been to a lot of places. I got them, here in Florida years ago, and I'll wear these every Cinco de Mayo when I'm at the salons and I'm serving up those Patron margaritas. As I'm pouring those for our guests that are coming in, they'll go from salon to salon to salon. I'll wear these. I'll be in my Cinco de Mayo disguise. And I've taken these all over the place. I took them to Mexico last year when we had our trip. We had a team cruise, went down to Cozumel. So I've had these. They've traveled with me as I've moved around. And these are my Cinco de Mayo special costume decorative glasses. So I'm going to take these off for now so I can see what's going on. And I can get into our story time today. But hopefully you guys dressed up. If you didn't, shame on you. Why didn't you dress up? So Cinco de Mayo, this is going to be a special one. We're actually closing in on the end of this book. So the first, 10, 11 episodes, I was reading to you from Your First Year in the Beauty Industry, How to Not Just Survive, but Thrive in the Business of Beauty. And then we switched gears into the second book in the YFY book series, which is Your First Year in Salon Ownership, and the things that I've learned over the past, 10 years of being a salon owner, being able to have, our salons. We have in Florida, we have salons now, and we are in Texas. So the things that I've learned over the last 10 years, going on 11 years being an owner, and we've been working through that book now. And what are we going to do when we finish that book? Because we're almost done with that book. Well, I think we're going to have to keep story time going. Hopefully we can keep it going even after all the salons are open and we're all back to business. I'd like to still be able to come back and do these live story times. Maybe we'll go into other information. Maybe we'll go into the third book in the YFY book series, which doesn't even exist yet. I've been working on, it and creating it, but it's not actually out there yet. But the third book in the series, so maybe we'll kind of hash it out and you'll get maybe a live kind of behind the scenes of going through that whole process of putting that book together. So we'll see, but we're going to keep something going. And if this is your first time joining us, welcome to Storytime with Sunny D. If this is you're just back again because you like coming and hanging out, welcome back, welcome back. So as we get ready to open and get ready to go back to work, I know there's probably a lot of questions. I was sharing a little bit with my team yesterday. I was, going to a couple of our supply stores, and it was interesting. I had some interesting encounters because there's a lot of, how people are approaching the reopening, and there's a lot of questions in the air. There's a lot of like, what should we do? What shouldn't we do? There's a lot of those kinds of things like hanging over people's heads, and there's going to be a lot of that. There's going to be this kind of gray area in this period where everybody's eager and anxious to get back to work. But, just as in, in any kind of kind of stressful or unclear area, navigation is going to be the key. And as we're navigating going back to work within our company, we know that, there's potential risk all the time, but we also know that what's already existing out there and what's happening. If there's a fire, we don't have to necessarily need to run into the fire. You can walk deliberately, you can walk directly, but you don't need to run into it. So as I'm looking at it and observing, and keeping an eye on how we're navigating it, there's a lot of people that, we saw a couple weeks ago in the state of Georgia. I know a lot of people in Georgia, they're just like, all right, we're open. And they're just kind of roll the dice and see what happens. That's one approach. And then there's a more measured and more, like kind of deliberate approach and a method approach. So there's going to be lots of different approaches. I think that when it comes to, like opening up, thinking about when you want to open, how you're going to open, being in a situation where, we were quick to close. And that was, and just thinking about safety and thinking about, what could happen and what possibly could happen. So I said, it's better be quick to close and slow to open than slow to close and quick to open. Because then you're on the opposite ends. And that's where a lot of people will find themselves as we're starting to navigate, and get prepared, make sure that we have information. Also, being able to see what some of the other states are doing, different states and different areas are getting, you're able to get feedback. Because, it's like, you pull the Band-Aid off, right? You rip the Band-Aid off and then you can't reuse it, so you're gonna have to get a new Band-Aid. So if there's states or there's areas that open up and then all of a sudden there's another surge in cases or outbreaks and things like that, then what? It's not going to be so easy to then close it back up. You can go back and forth. So I think that's where a lot of the states are wanting to take their time and do it right. But there's no playbook. So it's all being written in real time. It's all being written while we're watching and this is happening. I know for all of my people in the barber community and in the hair salon and stylist community, having to go back to work is going to be a little bit, it's going to be a little nerve-wracking in a sense. We want to make sure that we're doing it the right way, but our business, essentially doesn't exist without contact with another person, right? You have to put your hands on somebody if you're going to be doing their hair, doing their makeup, washing their hair, cutting their hair, coloring their hair. You're going to be, at most, right? If you're like me and you've got really long arms, at most you might be, 2 to 3 feet away from them at any time. So when they're saying, remain 6 feet everywhere you go, you see, every store and everywhere, it's like 6 feet, 6 feet, 6 feet, social distancing, 6 feet, practice 6 feet, practice 6 feet. And then you forget, like, no, we don't have, our arms aren't that long. We don't have that option. So those are things that you have to consider, as you're going back. Like, there's going to be some industries and some businesses and some professions that's just not a reality. It's not practical. So the information and the knowledge that you're trying to get and consume and take in, so you can then make, wise decisions and take the right precautions as you're going back to work, are going to be critical. And as we go back to work and we are able to, they get more confidence, right? Some of the fears will ease, and we'll be able to have, the ideal situation occur where people are comfortable, people are, they're comfortable knowing, especially when, a vaccine comes out. Then it's going to be, it's going to be a great day, because then people are going to know, okay, there's a vaccine. And there's been a lot of success, even people that have contracted the coronavirus, there has been a lot of success. So there are some bright spots in there, so when you do go back, knowing as much as you can, learning as much as you can about the virus, about the potential treatments, about the potential therapies, about the potential, all of the symptoms, about everything that you can, So then you can go in with confidence. And that's the big thing, especially if you're in a high touch industry like ours. Having confidence is going to be paramount, because that's going to be, people coming in saying, okay, put your hands on me. And I'm trusting that, I'm going to be safe and you're going to be safe and we're all going to be safe. But having the confidence, it's going to come from the knowledge and the education. And so that's a big thing for me. That's something I'm continuing to do, making sure I'm learning as much as possible, making sure that I'm, talking with my team about it, communicating that to our, guests. So talking to your customers about it, making sure they know, what's going on. And then, knowing what is practical and what makes sense and what you can do. So you can still give that confidence, be able to deliver the products or the services that you're wanting to deliver, and doing it in a safe way. And so that's going to be a big part of the navigation. As we were going into this, I was talking to a group yesterday, and I was talking about how, having those plans, those different plans, are going to be critical, not only now during the Corona economy that we're going into, which is going to be a new economy. It's going to be new practices, business approaches, new businesses, but having the plan A, but also having the contingency plans B, plan C, plan D, plan E, plan F. In life, I don't really know anybody that's, has plan A, and this plan A is just rocking and rolling, and that's just what they're still working on. Maybe you do, but I do not. Everybody that I know, especially the super successful people that I know, they're like on plan C, D, E, F. I know for myself, I'm on plan E, F. So when you start thinking about like people that like look at super successful people and talk to them, ask them, listen to their, their video, their podcast, read their book, find out what plan are they on. And you'll find out that nobody's on plan A. So if you're on plan A right now, and that's the only plan you have, you're probably just getting started in whatever you're getting into, whatever you're into right now. So I want to encourage you to start thinking about contingencies. Start thinking about, and this is something, I learned in the military. This is something I practice still today in life. This is something you also learn in sports, when their coaches drawing up plays. And then you have to think, like, if this happens, then what do we do? If this happens, then what do we do? Those are contingencies. So I want to encourage you to start thinking about contingencies and thinking about plan B, plan C. Because if you do go back, right? If you do go back, and then we'll just throw a contingency out there, there's a huge spike in cases in your state or in your city. And then they close your city or your state or your county down again. What are you going to do? Are you just going to pack up your stuff, go back home, and be like, oh well, I guess I'm back on quarantine, I'm back at home, I'm just sitting waiting for the them to say I can go out again? I mean, is that going to be your contingency plan? So I want you to think about that. Like, what happens if that happens? And start making some contingencies. There's nothing wrong with having a backup for your backup, even for your backup. So having some plans. So that's one of the things I want to encourage you guys as we get ready to go. And as you guys are going back to work and you're starting back up, and your city or your city's on the cusp of starting back up, have contingencies. And to go back, to work without contingencies is almost asking for problems. Is almost asking for, a situation, because now you're going back, but you don't really have a contingency. And then you get told, oh, we're shut down again because of that, whatever. And then you have to go back home. What is going to be your contingency plan? So that's one thing I would say, start thinking about contingencies. Because as I shared with, the group yesterday, and I've been sharing a lot, this isn't something that's like a one-off thing. Yes, the coronavirus isn't even new, right? We know it's the novel coronavirus, which means novel means new, but coronavirus has been around. So a new strain, But there will be some other thing. There will be something else that's going to disrupt your economy, your community, your business, your life, your world. There's going to be something else. And so if you know that there's things, rainy days are coming, right? If anybody goes outside and gets rained on, whose fault is it? You could point your, finger up at the sky, or you can yell at the, at the heavens or the gods or whoever, but it's your fault, right? If you go outside and you don't have an umbrella, well, you're thinking, well, I live in, I don't know, in the desert. It doesn't ever rain, but that one day it does rain, and you don't have the umbrella. Whose fault is it? Every day that it rains, it's your fault. If you don't put an umbrella in your backpack, or you have it in your car, have it wherever, have it with you, then when it rains, you get wet, it's no one's fault but your own. And so knowing that these things are going to happen, look at the timeline: 1907, 1929, 1987, 2008, 2010. So all of those years, we had some kind of disruption in the economy. And I sucked in school, I didn't want social studies, forget about it, history, forget about it. But as I got, into business, I started learning that there's patterns, and business is a lot of pattern recognition, and life is a lot of pattern recognition. Because as you start to grow and mature as a person, you start to understand connections. You're like, oh, I've seen this happen before. I know if this happens, I know that happens, or I've seen these patterns before. And so I started really getting into history and studying. And when you look back from 1907, 1929, 1987, 2008, 2010, 2008 was the last big financial crisis, where we dipped into a little Great Recession period, where the housing bubble burst, right? And that was a man-made travesty, right? Now we're doing 10 years later, a little over 10 years later, we're going through the coronavirus, and it's another travesty. Arguably, is it man-made? Hopefully, I mean, we don't know, but there's some speculation out there, but and it's rocked our economy to the core. But even in 1917, that was the panic of 1917. We saw a 50% contraction. And then 1929, which was the Black Tuesday, the stock market plummets, right? To 1987, it was called Black Monday, right? And then even in 2000, there was the dot-com bubble burst. So all of these periods of time, we've had these huge contractions where the economy was getting squeezed and everybody's pocketbooks were getting squeezed. So when these things happen repeatedly, and if you were sitting somewhere, you're sitting on a bench on the side of the road, and a car goes by and there happens to be a pothole, and the car hits that pothole and there's a puddle, and that puddle splashes up and splashes on you. What would you do, right? You'd say, okay, well, you identify, okay, that pothole's there, the car comes, splash, hits me, I'm going to move to the other side of the bench, I'm going to move to the other side of the street. Another car comes by, hits the same pothole, and you stay sitting there, and it splashes and hits you again. What do? Right? Doing the same thing over and over. If you continue to sit there, you're going to continue to get splashed. And doing that same thing over and over, we know that's the definition of insanity. So if you know that there's going to be another contraction, there's going to be another financial squeeze, there's going to be another, whether it be a bubble, whether it be a virus, whether it be man-made, whether it be a natural disaster, there will be more things coming. What are you going to do? And, you have to start thinking about those things now, because if you're not thinking about them now, you're maybe being naive to the fact that, oh, this won't happen again. This is a once in a lifetime thing. And I just gave you 5 or 6 periods of lifetime over the last, 100+ years that we've had these happen, these events. So just keep that in mind as you guys are navigating not just the coronavirus and this corona economy that we're going into, but as you're navigating the next thing, or towards the next thing, or around the next thing, or through the next thing, because there will be more things. There will be more things. As we get into this chapter, I wanted to kind of open with that because this chapter that we're going into is the what if chapter. So this is like the what if you do make it. And so yesterday we went into growth and expansion, and some of the things I was reading about, I haven't read these things and I wrote these things. So it was kind of creepy in a sense, because it was like, as I was reading it, it was like the stuff that was happening right now, but this is written, a few years back. So that kind of, I was like, oh man, this has actually come to pass. It's come to fruition, and it's just pattern recognition. I'm not Nostradamus. I'm not predicting the future. It's just pattern recognition. But it still was kind of creepy when I read that. Some of those things about, companies that may not exist by the time you read this. And I was talking about Sears and Walmart and Wendy's and Sports Authority and Toys R Us, and Sports Authority and Toys R Us closed down. And it was like, if you don't kind of think about geometric expansion and shifting your business model in some way, you may not exist, and some of those don't, and it's already happened. And today we're going into chapter 11, and chapter 11 is the what if chapter. So we started with, why is salon ownership for you? Chapter 2 is starting with the end in mind. Chapter 3 was systems. It was a good one. Chapter 4, the numbers. Chapter 5, the hiring process. Chapter 6, career paths. Chapter 7, you only have two hands. Chapter 8 was on financing and construction. Chapter 9, key relationships. Chapter 10, growth and expansion, which was yesterday. And today we're doing chapter 11, what if you do make it? So this is the last chapter. And then after that, there is some bonus material. I'm going to save that for another episode. But as we get into this chapter today, I want you to be thinking about these things. And a lot of this is like, what's next? Contingencies, having plans, thinking about what's coming, thinking about what's down the road. So here we go with chapter 11. We're going to start with a quote. Roads, where we're going, we don't need roads. Who knows what quote that is? Who is that? Does anyone watching, whether you're on Instagram, you're on Facebook? I know if you're on Twitter, I'm recording this live broadcast, but I may not be able to see your tweet reply. But if you're listening to the podcast, just shout it out. I'm going to give it to you again. Here's the quote. Roads, where we're going, we don't need roads. So that, my friends, my younger friends, you guys may not have known this one. If you're a little older, 80s, 90s, early 90s, maybe you do. That was a quote from Doc from Back to the Future. In that scene, I remember when it was like, I think it was at the end of the first one, where he went back to pick up Marty. And he gets to, he's at Marty's house. They have the DeLorean there, and Marty gets in, and they have to get up to, 88 miles an hour for the flux capacitor to kick in so they can blast through the time portal and travel back to the future, right? And so then they get in the car, and they're on Marty's street, and Marty's like looking out, in the street, there's not that much, it's not that long. There's not that much runway. And so Marty looks at Doc, and he's like, Doc, we don't have, we're never going to make it. We're never going to be able to get up to 80. We don't have enough runway. He's like, there's not enough road here for us to get up to, 88 miles an hour. And then Doc looks at him. He's like, roads, where we're going, we don't need roads. And he had done some work on the DeLorean, and all of a sudden the car lifts up, the wheels turn in. It's got jet blast on the bottom, and it flies off. So that was Doc from Back to the Future. Roads, where we're going, we don't need roads. I think he had some cool glasses he put on as he's looking at Marty, and Marty's just tripping because he's like, what's going on here? I didn't know the DeLorean flies. So here we are, chapter 11. What if, ... you do make it? Awesome. You did it. You made it through the first year as a salon owner. Kind of. Maybe you lost some blood, sweat, and tears along the way. All normal, by the way. You may have also lost part of your mind. Normal as well. So now what? Well, keep in mind, those stats I shared with you early on about the attrition rate in the first 5 years, which could creep up as high as 98%. And then the little 2% that make it crumble in the next five. Just a little friendly reminder. It's not time to rest on your laurels. Now that you're past year one, it's time to really take a close look at your day to day. The value that you add to your company as the commander in chief becomes critical. These next 2 to 3 years are the infantile stages of not only your business, but also you as a business owner. What I see happen with most owners is they get lost on what their role is. If you, as the business owner, are also a practitioner of the craft, you may default into work hard mode, which is fine, but you could be working hard at the wrong things. I'm not saying to stop practicing yet, but refocus your energy. The reason I say yet is because of that whole two hands thing we talked about earlier. One of the three laws of the mind, you can only focus on one thing at a time, is true. One of the best salon owners I know, my good friend Steve, isn't an operator of the craft. He's 100% operator of the business though. Through his singular focus as the business operator, he's built one of the best salons there is, Salon 427 in Spring Hill, Florida. Little shout out to Steve. I don't know if you're watching, my brother, but I remember writing this. I was smiling as I was writing those words. So he's constantly innovating, mastering new business skills, and elevating himself and his team to the next level. At one point, he was thinking of going to beauty school, which I did not encourage because he wanted to add value to the business. What I told him is the same advice I'm giving you. There are so many ways to add value besides doing the technical work. If he had gone to beauty school, there's no doubt he probably would have become an amazing hairstylist, the busiest in his business, no doubt, simply because of his work ethic and all-in attitude. And that's the problem. While he was busy being an awesome stylist, his business would have been busy falling apart around him, especially during the infantile stage. Your business needs a lot of attention. There's two kinds of work that happen in every business. One is the technical work that the business does. The second is what I call the system work. For some reason, probably because of how our brains are wired, we default into technical work mode. The real heavy lifting, though, is the system work, the mental work, the studying of systems and processes and constant refinement to make them measure up to one of my litmus tests I call FEE, F-E-E, which stands for fast, efficient, and effective. Every system must pass this test or else it's costing you in the way of time and money. I guess that's where you end up paying that, a fee for inefficiency, pun intended. So if you think about fee, right? Fast, efficient, effective, you can test these things. You can put different systems in place, try it, experiment, reiterate, back to the drawing board and tweak it because you want to make your systems be follow into that, fee, fast, efficient, and effective. Back to the story. One of the other huge items that you, the owner, need to do is run the HR department. In the beginning, you'll be running most departments, by the way. The definition of an HR department is the following. A human resources department is a critical component of employee well-being in any business, no matter how small. HR responsibilities include payroll, benefits, hiring, firing, and keeping up to date with state and federal tax laws. Critical is the key word. Employee well-being is the challenge. As a business owner, everyone on your team has their own agenda and goals, and you have the task of trying to align those with the ones you've set for the company. In some cases, you'll hire someone whose goals align perfectly, but in most cases, it'll be a constant grind, day in and day out. You'll have to remind them constantly of where the company is going and how they fit into the big picture. From my experience, most people want similar things: a sense of contribution, growth opportunities, and to earn a great living doing something they enjoy. However, confidence, self esteem, and self awareness are all traits that I found are underdeveloped in most people. I blame it on eighth place trophies, among other things. But the false sense of security that the big bad world immediately exposes as complete bullshit once you enter the real world has made the HR department an extremely busy place. So I'm going to jump in here for a second. So when you think about that, the eighth place trophies, what does that do? That gives people a false sense, right? Everybody's a winner. I'm a winner. You're a winner. We're not. It's not. You're not all winners, right? There are winners. There are losers. That's the reality. And so, I'm not sure, where and the psychological talks and all of the circles they decided, yeah, everybody gets a trophy, because in the real world, everybody does not get a trophy. And so what that does is it creates that false sense of self-esteem, that false sense of confidence, that false sense of like, I'm awesome. And then you go out in the real world and you get your lunch taken and you realize you're not that awesome. And then you're like, well, what happened? Everybody said I was the best, right? Because you've been being told you were the best. So, if you're raising kids, especially right now, I mean, maybe you have to show them there's winners and there's losers. I mean, that's reality, because the world will show them. The world doesn't care. The world isn't going to care about their feelings or care about, giving them a trophy because they showed up. The world is not going to be that way. So if you have the ability to help guide them into the real world, maybe a little bit sooner than later, take the opportunity. All right, let's get back to the story. You, as the head of the HR department, have your work cut out for you. Currently, I'm not the oldest one in my company. I'm not the smartest one in my company. And I'm definitely not the prettiest one in my company. But I will say this: I am the most disciplined one, especially when it comes to developing those traits I just mentioned. That helps me create a bulletproof mentality, which is why you need, as the CEO and leader of an organization during the infantile stage, is when this matters most. So those traits that I'm talking about, I'm gonna jump in here for a second. So developing, real confidence, developing self-awareness, developing your self-esteem. That can happen through you educating yourself, through you reading, learning, listening, podcasts, books, to bulletproof your mindset, because the world is inevitably, it's going to be a negative world we live in. There's always going to be, things you can find out that suck, and it's just sad. And I mean, think about right now, there's a lot of people that are going to be really depressed. There's a lot of people that are going to be down and sad, and because they haven't been able to work, aren't making any money, got laid off, maybe their business now filed for bankruptcy, maybe it's not even going to exist anymore, so they're losing hope. And so you have to, as the leader, lead through that crisis, but you have first not only to lead other people, you have first to lead yourself. So you mentally getting stronger and preparing your mind and bulletproofing your mindset is going to be critical. And then being able to teach people how to do that. And so you can develop it over time. And over time, if you're consistent with it and you keep on doing it, you will develop that bulletproof mentality that no matter what kind of storm comes your way, what kind of fire is thrown at you, you're able to navigate through that, and you're able to help lead and navigate other people through it. And so you, as a CEO, you have to work on that. It's going to be critical. So back to the story. During the infantile stage is when this matters most. Being new at something also means you're fragile. No one likes to look like an idiot when learning something. I'm sure you've been in a classroom environment, and when the teacher asks, Who has any questions? Even though you had one, you didn't raise your hand because you didn't want to look stupid. Well, newsflash, you weren't the only one. The problem is that teacher didn't create the right environment where you felt comfortable enough putting up your hand into the air. Your job as the CEO is to constantly be working on creating such an environment. As you make your way through your infantile stage, another key thing on your to-do list is recruiting new talent and new leadership. You have to have your eye on that. You'll want to experiment with this in the early stages to see what works. There's no three-step process to recruiting, but always be hiring. Some owners only hire when they need someone. That's usually when they're too busy to train that new person and they get lost in the pipeline. I prefer to hire during the slower periods so you'll have the time to get people indoctrinated correctly. If you're concerned about money to pay them, go back and read the chapter on financing. Money should not prevent you from hiring, even if it's a couple part-timers or better yet, maybe some interns. If you've designed your business correctly, interns who are working for experience instead of pay should be seeking you out for the opportunity. If you haven't thought about that as an option, I definitely would. The last thing I want to draw your attention to after this first year is your brand messaging. You have a small window to play around with your brand messaging before you start to confuse people, so do it early. If you're not 100% satisfied with your logo, business cards, website design, Instagram profile, Facebook, etc., now is the time to make those tweaks. Once you get into the adolescent phase, years 4, years 5, and 6, it's rebranding, which is a much harder thing to do. By that time, you'll have hopefully a lot of equity in your messaging, and it'll cost too much to change everything. Unless, of course, it's necessary. If your messaging is not drawing the kind of clientele or staff you want, there comes a time when you have to cut bait. I've seen some companies hold on too long. They are hoping with fingers crossed that they can resurrect the brand. But when your messaging doesn't resonate, meaning you've gone cold, you have more luck digging up your grandma and bringing her back online so she can make you a Sunday dinner. Throwing money at the problem doesn't fix anything, and you have to get the messaging on point. In these early stages is when you have the flexibility to experiment because no one knows you yet. So they're not expecting anything from you. Once you become known as the blank for blank, then the consumer has to be resold. Good luck with that. Imagine if Walmart tried to become the high-end provider of goods. That ain't happening. Their messaging as the lowest price and rollback savings supercenter is locked into every consumer's mind. So I'm going to jump in here for a second. So think about that. When it comes to branding, remessaging, there's companies that hang on too long. So I know in the beauty industry, if your whole pitch is about being the lowest cost, lowest price, lowest everything, and then you try to spin it, and then you're like, oh, we're high end, like you're not going to resell the customer on that. Vice versa. If you're starting as the high end, like no one's all of a sudden going to be thinking of, Louis Vuitton as like a discount store. Louis Vuitton try to come in with the discount store. They have to create a whole new brand. There are companies that have rebranded. What small ones I'm thinking about right now in real time, like Dunkin' Donuts. They were Dunkin' Donuts and now they're just Dunkin'. Because when you go in their stores, you can see they've done a facelift on the stores. There's definitely not just donuts and coffee. They're definitely getting into other items of food and trying to become more. And it's not easy. They're having them. It's not, right now, obviously, a lot of their restaurants are closed, but it's not been easy for them to do that because what they're trying to do is they're trying to recreate this image in the consumer's mind that they've spent, I don't know, how long has Dunkin' been around? Let's see if Alexa knows. Hey, Alexa, when was Dunkin' Donuts founded? Maybe she knows.
Dunkin' Donuts was founded in 1950 by William Rosenberg. It is 70 years old.
There you go. Thank you. 1950. okay, 70 years old, right? And she still knows, it has Dunkin' Donuts, but now they're like, oh, we're now Dunkin', right? So it's one of those things where rebranding, getting your messaging, tweaking it. Rebranding is hard, but tweaking your messaging early on, if you're just getting started, if you're just building your profile, start tweaking, start playing with your messaging. Do it now, because if you do it now and you can test it and you can see what's working, what's not working, versus, building up this whole brand and then all of a sudden trying to do a pivot. And I shared with you yesterday about growth and expansion when I tried to develop two new brands that I was experimenting with. They were associated, but also not with my flagship brand, which is the Salon 1.0, because it was a whole different approach. Express was all about $25, 25 minutes or less of all the services and products and everything that we were doing in there. So that was a different messaging. So I wasn't going to call it, the Salon 1.0. It was called, Express Salon. Same thing with, if you're starting a men's brand, or it doesn't matter what the product and service is, but if you're starting a whole new brand, you've got a messaging that you're developing for that brand that is going to take time. And so playing and experimenting early in the process is the time to do it. So have some fun with it, but make sure you do that early and do it often, because when it starts to stick, and like I said, like Walmart, you think of low prices, Amazon, like the everything store, also associated with low prices. You don't think, and then Louis Vuitton, you associate with high prices, you associate with luxury. So there's going to be, when you think of different airlines, different clothing, brands, different food brands, you're going to think different things. When you think of Dunkin' Donuts versus a Starbucks, their messaging took time over years and years of development. And so your early phases is when you want to be tweaking those things. All right, back to the story. In closing, hopefully you're catching what I'm laying down. Your first year is truly just laying the seed. The actual hard work, the farming, begins now. At times you're going to want to quit. We've all been there. It's lonely at the top, so make sure you network with a few other owners, people in your position that you can relate to, and you can relate to the pain that you may be going through, and they also are going through at the same time. It'll help. Sometimes there will be no one around and you'll have to go it alone. In times like those, I hope you'll fall back on these words as a guiding light that will help you fight on one more day. Lastly, to save you some trouble, when the naysayers come, and they will, in the form of family, friends, other loved ones, even your business partners at times, when they see you stressed out, working 18 hours a day, on the verge of going bankrupt, they'll offer you advice, quote unquote, or want to give you permission to quit, saying things like, I'm just trying to look out for you. Remember, that's all part of the process. That's a part of trying to build a great business. That's a part of trying to contribute something new to the world, something that doesn't exist but needs to. I ask you this: before you quit or even think about quitting, answer this question. If not you, then who? So that, my friends, is the what if chapter. Things to consider. What if you do make it? What's next? What's happening? Hope you guys enjoyed that one. The bonus material, afterthoughts and stuff, is it's going to be a lot of fun. There's a lot of things I'll be going through on our next sit down together for our next story time. So stay tuned. I'll be back here 9 a.m. tomorrow morning so we can get into that bonus material and we can talk about some of those other thoughts. I'm sure that one's going to be fun. I've had a lot of thoughts, especially lately, as we've been rolling here in the Corona economy, that I'm excited to share with you guys. So hopefully I'll see you back here tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. If you're listening to the podcast, hopefully you'll be back, or maybe you'll show up for a live. So grab a friend, grab a coffee, and come on over. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook pages, multiple pages. We're streaming, we're on Twitter. These all are being recorded too. So if you guys want to take me on the run, take me on the walk, take me on the go with you, you can check out the podcast, yfyipodcast.com. And all of the videos and everything will live on the Facebook page. So go and check those out. The Facebook page is just Sunny D, pretty easy, SONNYD. And hopefully I'll catch you live for story time. So thanks for being here. Hopefully you guys are staying safe. You're feeling good. You're getting ready. You're getting geared up to get back out there and create magic in the world. I know I am. I can't wait. And I'm excited to continue doing story time. So I'll see you guys tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Eastern time. We'll be back for another episode. Take care. Awesome. All right, Instagram. All right, Facebook. Did you guys invite people today? I want to see pictures of you in your Cinco de Mayo look. Make sure you snap a selfie, tag story time, send it over. Hope you guys had some fun today. And I will see you guys tomorrow morning.
Playing from Sunny D.